I watched Trump's speech at the Business Forum in Miami today, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. He spoke for about an hour, and he mentioned Biden 15 times and Obama 3 times at a business forum. He starts off by saying that he's a very modest man, and then he says that he single-handedly restored American sovereignty when he won the election on November 5th, but last night we lost some of that sovereignty, but don't worry, we're going to get it back soon. He starts reminiscing about being on the campaign trail last year, and he's like, remember we did that McDonald's shoot, and then we did that garbage truck shoot? And he says the McDonald's shoot was the biggest hit in the history of Google. And then because he does not understand that land does not vote, he brags and says that there's never been anything like it before, that he won 86% of the counties, and says that's a big one. That's how dumb he thinks we are, that we think that land votes. Because he was stuck in the past a little bit, he did say that 1 year ago we were a dead country and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. To prove that we're so hot, he says we have the strongest economy, strongest border, strongest military, strongest friendships, and strongest spirit of any country in the world. And then he says that we have the greatest economy in the world, just many people can't see it yet. Probably like all of you who are spending way more money than you would normally spend on things like groceries. You know how he bragged the entire campaign that he was going to fix everything on day one, and then he said within 12 months everything's going to be fixed, and now we're coming up on 10 months in and he hasn't fixed anything at all? He says, you'll see over the next 12 months we're going to be in the golden age of America, which he did claim we entered the golden age of America on day one, so, you know. He says that we've brought in $18 trillion, and that number is going to be $21 trillion by the end of the year, and he says this to business leaders, and all of these business leaders have had the opportunity to go to whitehouse.gov and click on the article that details all of the investments that we've had that does not come anywhere near that because it's less than $10 trillion because he is lying. He said our GDP growth in the second quarter 2025 was triple or quadruple every other nation in the entire world. Then he starts talking about factories, and he says, just wait and see. In a couple of years when all the factories are built, you're going to have all these jobs, and then you're going to see. And then he says, we're building some of the biggest buildings ever built anywhere in the world. That's a direct quote. And then he says that they literally are building buildings so big they can cover the island of Manhattan. Manhattan, I just looked it up. It's 636 million square meters. The largest 10 buildings combined by floor area in the entire world take up under 20 million square meters. So he was only off by 97%. Or a factor of 33 times, and that's compared to the 10 largest buildings all combined, not the ones that he hypothetically says we're building that are going to be larger than Manhattan, which is a real thing that he said. Then he says we lifted 600,000 people off of food stamps, and then forgets about the fact that due to his policies, 42 million people are about to no longer receive their SNAP benefits. Bro, he says it's easy to win elections when you talk about the facts. What has he been doing every single day if not talking about the facts as he sees them? And he wasn't able to win the elections that he wanted. He also said, non-ironically, that paying workers more money doesn't hurt the businesses. They can all afford to do it. Unironically, I swear to God, he says that. He says that Biden's inflation cost the typical family $33,000 over a, quote, period of time. He also brags about the price of eggs going down and says that because of the price of eggs has gone down, the price of everything can also be assumed to have gone down. He literally makes that comparison. He said Biden rigged the 2020 election, and then said Biden had no idea, though, what was going on. It was just the crooked people around him. And then regarding his booming economy, he says the following, quote, we're bringing it back to the beautiful part where you can have, and you can truly say we're talking about the American dream again. You didn't used to hear that term. You heard it during my first 4 years and then it disappeared. The man thinks that the term the American dream became part of the lexicon in the year 2017 when he took office, and then was no longer said after 2021 when he left office, and now is being said again. He thinks that the idea of the American dream started when he became president. Yeah. He says that gasoline is the lowest it's been in 2 decades. He forgets what it cost during the pandemic, and then says that very soon it's going to be $2 all over the place, and that is going to continue to drive down the cost of everything because the cost of everything has gone down. And then he says that a bunch of governors and mayors are going to want to take credit for the prices being lowered, but they didn't do a damn thing. Every single thing that happened was 100% on Donald Trump, except for the fact that also the Democrats are apparently demanding free healthcare for, as he puts it, drug dealers and criminals and people from mental institutions. That's who the Democrats want to give free healthcare to. Here's a direct quote. "I'm not a mean person. I just want a country that's great. Obama is a mean person. He's a divider. Barack Hussein Obama." And then he immediately follows that up by saying that Jerome Powell is a total nincompoop. Gavin Newsom is slimy. He says that 3 times and then calls him newscum. He calls Chuck Schumer crying Chuck on 2 separate occasions immediately after that. And I just want to remind you again that he's talking to business leaders, and he also just said that he's a very nice person. He will later in this speech say that global warming is a complete hoax, and in fact the scientists know that, which is why they changed the term from global warming to climate change, because they didn't know whether it was going to go up or down. But he says at this point, a train is a stupid idea because you have planes and they're faster. He says he doesn't want to be, quote, braggadocious, but that he, unlike Joe Biden, knows exactly what's going on, and then immediately follows up by saying the Democrats installed a communist as the mayor of the largest city in the U.S. Democratic Socialist, not sponsored generally by major players in the Democratic Party, who won the vast mandate of the people of the city of New York. And he's saying that Democrats installed a communist in... It's so bad. It's really bad. And on the exact same note, because he has no idea what communism is at all, he says that South Africa is a communist country 3 separate times. He then says that the G20 was going to be held in South Africa, but they don't even deserve to be one of the G's anymore. Swear to God. He really is bitching about communism for a while, and he says, after last night's results, it's clear we have a choice between communism and common sense, and he says that communism hasn't worked for the past 1,000 years. And then specifically talking about the New York mayoral race, he says that you had a choice between a communist and a thug, and for some reason the people chose a communist, and he says it like he could not believe that they wouldn't pick a thug, because they picked a thug last year. Not New York, obviously, just idiots in general. I put a line in my notes at this point that I was only 23 minutes into the speech, so I needed to chill with how much I'm taking notes on. So this is a non-inclusive list of the dumb things that he said for the remaining half, a little over half of his speech. He rants for like 5 minutes about how he came up with the idea for every time they build a factory, they should just build an electric generation plant next to that. And then as part of that, he says that government inspectors are stupid people. And he just goes on about how he came up with this idea. And even though no factories have been built yet, that they're going to all be built with their own electric generation plants. And then those are going to feed back into the grid and all this stuff. It's just all untrue because, again, no factories are being built. He says that he's already gotten you no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. And then he says the idea for no tax on tips came from a beautiful woman, but you can't say beautiful woman anymore. And then as part of that, he continues to say beautiful woman like 6 or 7 times. And then instead of saying her name, like Alina, the beautiful woman at the MGM in Las Vegas, he just says a beautiful waitress from Las Vegas. And then he says that in Nevada, every job is you're a waitress or you're working in a hotel. Oh yeah, here's my note about global warming as a scam, and that's why they changed it to climate change. And as part of that, he said, they are very smart people, not smart for us, smart for them. He brags about losing 100,000 government jobs as if that's a good thing. And then I swear to God, he says this, save it for your records later. If you watch my Caroline Leavitt speech from yesterday, she said we're going to cut $600 billion from the deficit. He said we're going to cut the deficit in half. I swear to God, multiple times he said this year the deficit will be cut in half. I'm pretty sure it's like $34 trillion. So he really thinks that 17 trillion is just getting given to us or something. Sorry, he said 18 trillion and 21 trillion this speech. He didn't say 17 trillion. So he thinks most of it is being just given to us. He, of course, talks about how he got indicted because betas always have to be the victim. And then he says that he originally planned to run for a 3rd term in 2024 after he won 2020 so that he could be president when the FIFA World Cup happened in the United States. And that was the reason that he wanted to run for it. And then he also brags about the fact that there's going to be cage matches on the grounds of the White House. He calls it UFC, but you get what I'm saying. Obviously, no MAGA has made it this far, but if they did, they wouldn't be happy to hear this. He says that he wants to make it very easy for people to come into our country legally, which I actually agree with him on. All right, I'm running out of time, so speed round. He says that officially 0 people have entered illegally for the past couple months. He brags about all the people that he illegally killed by blowing up the boats in the Caribbean. He says that we're going to denuclearize the United States and Russia and China. He says this just days after saying that we are going to start testing nukes again. He says that he ended 8 wars and says that the ending of the war between Israel and Palestine is not tenuous. He goes on a long anti-trans tirade where he's talking about that open long distance race where there were no set gender categories, that someone won by 5 hours it was a transgender individual, but it wouldn't matter because there were no gender categories. And then he also talks about the weightlifting. He said he made it the official policy of the U.S. that there were only 2 genders. And then the people who were there cheered as if they also forgot that they were at a business summit speech. And he says we have 92% of the Gulf of America's frontage, Gulf of Mexico. And then finally, he says, in conclusion, and follows it with these 3 points. Biden was falling down going up the children's stairs, but he can use them when it's raining. Let's see how a communist does in New York, and then he's going to help them. And then says that we're not allowed to say coal without saying clean, beautiful coal, and then he walks off.